It's been a while, guys. It's been over 2 months since the last KSP2 video, and I gotta say, I've missed this game. It's still got its bugs, it's still got its imperfections, but honestly, there is no game like a Kerbal Space Program game. Not one out there is similar to KSP1 or KSP2 enough to be anything in the same realm. So last time we got a bunch of science, and the first thing we got to do this time around is I got to sort out what parts we're going to need for this launch we're doing today. Since we managed to land on a moon last time with no issues whatsoever, I've decided that this time we're going to land on 2 moons. So the craft is actually going to be a combination of 2 crafts. Because of the MOONS higher gravity, you're going to need a ship with a better ISP to get down to it and get off of it. It does not make sense to send an entire craft down to the moon and then bring it back when Apollo style is going to be a lot cheaper, where we send down a small lander, bring it back, unload everybody from the lander, and then leave it behind because we don't need it anymore. So this is our little pod here that's going to be used for the landing on the Mun. It's got all the fuel it's going to need. It can break up into pieces. It's everything that we really need overall. Now after that, I'm going to connect a larger landing pod. This is going to be where we house everybody. This is going to be the part that returns back to Kerbal. This is also going to be the part that lands on Minmus. With Minmus's lower gravity, it's near impossible to mess up a landing on Minmus, so we can land that whole thing there with no problems at all. So now we're just going to get all the small details in here. We're adding in the RCS, the solar panels, power, parachutes, making sure that everything is staged right so that it will break off in the proper sequence and in the proper pieces. Now right there, I made a mistake. I just put a stack decoupler instead of a stack separator on the top nose cone, and that will come back to bite me in the butt a little bit later. Fortunately, it does not jeopardize the mission. In earlier games, I would have tried harder to get a better efficiency on those bottom engines there instead of just stacking 6 next to each other. But not only are we an early game and we have limited engines to go with, but KSP2 does not have a money function, so there is no downside to just stacking engines on this. This launch ended up not going well even though we did stack all the engines on it. The thrust to weight just wasn't enough to get up to orbit properly, and I realized it as soon as we started getting out of the atmosphere, so I ended up calling it really, really quickly, because this just wasn't enough power. The thing's heavy, and it takes a lot of power to get it up there. So we ended up doing a lot of minor adjustments and tweaking and getting a lot more staging going. We have this huge block of engines at the bottom now, but it should get up there this time around. And it only needs to work the one time. There is no punishment from the game for doing this. So by its standards, I'm doing everything right. By rocket science standards, this is very wrong and very inefficient. But we end up shedding the first set of tanks. Now we're shedding the second set of tanks. And now that we're on the third set of inner tanks, or the original set of external tanks, we should be able to break the bonds of Kerbin's gravity. Now that we've gotten ourselves up and out of the atmosphere, we pitch ourselves to the side. And the whole goal of orbit is you just need to throw yourself far enough forward, fast enough, that you are falling forward as fast as you are falling down to gravity. That's all an orbit is. So now we're just going to make some fine-tune adjustments. We're still a little bit low, but now we're not. Now I'm going to try and find the sweet spot to the Mun. We got a lot of fuel to get up there, but if we can find a cheaper solution, I'm going to do it, just because that's how I am. We've got a lot of missions to accomplish today, a lot of places we need to land, and landing landing in a precise location can be very fuel intensive because you have to make tweaks and adjustments, and you also have to compensate for it when you return back to your upper craft. So anywhere we can save fuel, and now that we're out of the atmosphere, I will try to do. So I found this intercept window here that seems to be the shortest distance, or in the minimal cost of fuel to get from where I am to where the MOON is. It looks like it's going to take a little bit of time though, so I accelerate around. I'm just trying to get the MOON into a different position so I can see where everything lines up. Fortunately, doing the voiceover in the future, I know that this worked. While I'm sorting this all out, I have an announcement for future KSP2 videos. I am going to be building off of a blueprint that I designed beforehand now for any upcoming mission, now that we're going to be going interplanetary after this. It is way too much of a hassle to be reverting the game 7 times once I've already gotten to the other planets. So I will be proof working and proof checking blueprints, and then I will be using those blueprints to do the launches. That also means if you guys would like, I can actually post those blueprints saved to a Git or something so that you guys could use them too if that's something you'd be interested in. So I actually ended up overcorrecting here, and I realized that RCS wasn't going to cut it. So I turned off the back engine and turned on the landing engine, using it to push ourselves in the opposite direction a little bit. I thought it cheaper and more time efficient than trying to turn around. So then I got everything tuned. We turned off that engine, turned on the main engine again, got ourselves lined up. And now we just need to bring ourselves closer to the moon. Fortunately, it's very hard to see in this shot, but I actually, by luck alone, ended up on a angle and trajectory. There it is. You can see that yellow dot. Once I brake, I'm going to be on a perfect clean line with that yellow circle, which is our target. So I don't have to do really much of any course corrections, and I don't need to change the angle of attack at all, which is just phenomenal. That's a great way to start this kind of run through. So we've now gotten to a low enough altitude that instead of bringing things lower, I've decided to disconnect here. We're going to transfer Valentina over to the lander. Everybody else is going to stay on board the main craft, and Valentina is going to go down. Since I used a stack separator on this side, instead of connecting the docking ports to each other, there were also trusses here. So when I disconnect the stack separator, the trusses are going to break off, but then the docking ports are going to pull each other close together. So then I had to disconnect the docking port as well. I also realized at this point that that decoupler on the top of the craft or on the bottom of the lander now, it's not going to go anywhere. Fortunately, it doesn't jeopardize the mission, but it was a mistake to put that there. It should have been a stack separator. And now we're on our way towards the MOON. Valentina's going to go set foot. So this is a pretty average descent in comparison to a lot of other stuff you do. It's just bring down your speed and make yourself go in a line. The two numbers I'm comparing right now are the yellow number next to the circle, the 30 kilometers, and the C number on my nav ball. If those numbers are close enough to each other, that means that I'm directly above that marker point, because the pink marker, or the pink number, is a direct indicator of how far I am from the ground. And if I can get those numbers close enough, it means that I'm going to land very close by, as long as I keep my direction and keep my point. So now it looks like we're going to be deviating by about 2 kilometers. I tried to make an adjustment burn here to compensate for that. And I ended up deciding to transfer fuel at this point too, from our external tanks to the internal tanks, because eventually we'll dump those external fuel tanks. That's how we're going to leave the moon. So at this point, I decided that that wasn't close enough. We had enough fuel, we had enough time. We were going to get a little bit closer for the sake of being proper about this. So we just did a little hop, and then I kept ourselves vertical a little bit longer. And there we go. We land within 900 meters roughly of the Monarch. I really do like how they decorated that building. Even at a distance, it just looks so pretty. So a little bit of bounce, but because of the size of the ship and because of the shape of the ship, nothing's going to happen. We turn on an antenna and a solar panel so that the ship can autopilot and it won't fall over when Valentina gets out. And we send Valentina on her way to go explore the Arch. So we got close enough to do it, and I wanted to get a couple of clean shots of the Monarch here. It's just so nice. The shadows are beautiful. The lights are clean. It's just nice. I can't wait to see how it changes as we go on with our explorations. But with all that cleanliness in mind, I wanted to get Valentina on top of it. I wanted her to see the distance, see the horizon, be able to peer out upon everything, and really revel in the hugeness of this structure, because oh my gosh, is it big. With enough precision, you could fly a very big space plane through that arch. So, now that we've found the Monarch and everything, what better to do than to claim it? It's ours now. Thanks, Valentina. We're also going to take a surface sample of it home. I don't know exactly how, a test tube's able to break the surface of this super hard rock. I assume it's super hard that it's managed to survive on the Mun this long. But who knows? We're going to have a little look-see around, see what's going on. So it's time to turn in the mission now, because we cannot get the next mission without doing that mission. We also got a bonus mission of planting a flag within any mare on the moon. So we need to orbit a probe with a communications antenna above Minmus. Before we can land on Minmus, we have to fulfill this secondary thing. So let's get Valentina back to the ship. Let's get her off the Mun so that we can continue our journey. Didn't even need to touch the ground on the way back. So now we're checking all of our fuel again. We're going to transfer everything we can into the tanks. I'm trying to get the ship that's orbiting above us into alignment so that when I launch up, I'll be pretty close to it. If you do it out of sync, you'll end up circling around up there, missing each other over and over and over again. So getting these two in a decent alignment is very important for it. Normally, my best option is to have it just on its way in as I launch, on its way towards me as I launch, because it's going to be picking up speed now that it's past its apoapsis. As it gets closer to the Mun, it's going to be going faster and faster. It's going to be harder to hit it at that point, but there we go. I've got my target set. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm transferring more fuel between the tanks, and I'm about to start dropping fuel tanks to conserve weight. So I'm dropping them in pairs to keep the ship symmetrical and make sure that its weight is always centered. But I'm dropping two at a time as well to make sure that I am burning as much fuel as I can and getting the maximum amount of oomph out of it. So now that we've gotten up into orbit, we are going to let time pass a little bit so that the differences between these two orbits will result in where they meet changing. Right now, they're very far away from each other, almost a quarter of their orbits difference. But as we let time progress right now, because of the fact that they're not locked or proportional to each other, they should end up meeting at one point, essentially because of the fact that there's discrepancies between the two orbits. We just got to be patient on this one because I don't want to burn a bunch of fuel trying to get an alignment when I could just let it happen organically. As you can see, they're not moving too much. There's like 3 or 4 of them that are commonly happening, but they are shifting around the circle over time. I was so confident that instead of dialing it in using a maneuver node, I decided to dial this one in with freehand. But now that we're nice and close, I set the orbit ball to target, and when we get close, I'm going to cancel out all of the speed. Then I'm going to point myself at it and try and get closer to it. So this is a little bit of burn, wait, burn, wait. Once we get within 2 kilometers, I'm going to try and engage RCS more. But this rocket engine is also fairly small, so I can tune it and make it do its thing. So now that we've reached this point, we point them at each other and we engage the RCS. This is going to bring them closer to one another, and then we're going to try and break them right next to it. So I was incorrect. I don't have stack separators unlocked yet. And because of that decoupler on top of the craft, we can't dock to each other. So I ended up, once getting these close enough to each other, just having Valentina jump out of the ship, do a little spacewalk over, and climb into the other ship. We're going to leave the Moonlander remainders in orbit around the Mun. It doesn't matter anymore. I could have done it cleaner, but like I said, next time we're going to be doing these with pre-tested crafts. So this problem isn't going to be happening again. So now that everybody's back on board the main Minmus craft, we can leave the Mun's orbit and set ourselves a course to go towards Minmus. Trying to get a trajectory right out of the gate, that's going to be really good. However, Minmus is a pretty small target, and trying to do multiple orbitals from the Mun to Kerbal to Minmus is a lot more difficult than just trying to shoot for one orbital from the one you're at. However, it's a great way to practice for doing gravity assists. So we've got our adjustment there. Boom. Now we're on our way to Minmus. So because of Minmus's lower gravity, the first time we got into Minmus's area of effect, we actually weren't able to stay there. The gravity was so weak, we got spit back out again, and I had to do another adjustment burn. But after that adjustment burn, we had a really nice circle going. So now that we got in orbit, we can turn in that mission, and we finally got the Minmus Monument mission. Now we have our target we can set for. Unlike on the Mun, everybody gets to go land on Minmus. They all get to see the joys. Oh. Because of the fact that the Minmus Monument is near the top of the moon, the trajectory is pretty sharp. I'm very happy we saved a lot of fuel until now, because even with the low gravity of Minmus, doing all this is going to cost. It's going to cost. And because of the fact that it's near one of the poles, it spins around pretty quickly, meaning that our window to land on it is going to happen fairly fast. But also means we can miss it fairly easily too, because it'll just keep on going around. So we're going to try and target a little bit ahead of where it is right now. Because by the time that we actually spin around again, I'm expecting it to have moved in position once more. But those predictions were nearly spot on, so we actually ended up perfectly in line with where we want to be. Now we're going to set ourselves down in the center of that asteroid crater. And then once we're directly above the crater, we're going to cancel out almost all of our sideways momentum. We're going to let ourselves nearly fall straight down. Again, because of the low level of gravity on this moon, we don't even need all 4 engines to fire. Those thumpers on the side actually ended up not even being needed. They were there in case we ever needed an extra push and the poodle wasn't enough. That center engine's got a great ISP. It really burns the fuel efficiently. It does not do it quickly. So some gravity wells are too deep for it to even manage to push off from. But we managed to land right next to the monument really cleanly. No extra adjustments necessary. I like the difference in designs that they managed to do with all the monuments. Because you can see from this one that it obviously is still advanced, still space agey, but it's completely different materials, completely different layout and format, and it's still really, really cool. We're going to land right on top of the guy's head with Valentina. She is going to claim this for all of Kerbal kind. Right on the tippy top. We claim it for all of Kerbal kind. It's ours now. Let's take a sample of this gem. It's a very slippery surface, though. It keeps on trying to kick us off. But look at that. It's like a Cthulhu Kerbal. So we're going to transfer out all the fuel. Give ourselves a nice big full engine. At this point, I realize that I totally forgot to do science. So we sent her back out real quick to do a quick science. So now that we're in orbit, we're going to get ourselves lower and get ourselves closer to the main planet. We need to go back home. So we're going to drop ourselves down. Bring it down nice and low. It's really 3 bumps down. We break out of Minmus's orbit. Then at the low point of that new orbit, we bring ourselves down even further below the MOONS sphere of influence. Then once we're that low, we're actually going to bring ourselves so low that we're touching the atmosphere. And then it's just all breaks from there. Since this engine doesn't work inside of atmosphere, we're going to burn up every single bit of fuel we can right now while we're still outside. We even get a beautiful sunrise shot thanks to the coincidences and lineups that happened here. But look at how beautiful that sunrise is, welcoming us home. So, we discharged everything else, and now we've just got the little landing pod that's going to make it back home. All the engines, all the landing gears, everything is all gone. We've got a heat shield that wasn't even needed, and some parachutes. Now, hopefully, everybody who's seen this video has seen a successful KSP-2 landing at this point. So it's pretty by the book. We hit the water. And that's the mission over. We managed to get to both of our sites. We managed to set everything out that we were supposed to do. And next time, we now have a mission to go to the Duna Monument. So, if you guys liked what you see, be sure to leave a like down below. Hit the subscribe button. I promise there's going to be more KSP2 videos coming up real soon. And this time, we're going interplanetary, so you don't want to miss that. And if you got any recommendations for any missions you want to see me do in KSP2 over any others, please leave a comment down below with that. I love hearing you guys' feedback. So, with all of that, later!